You will see a lot of people coming out as gays, lesbians, or transgender, but then they'll taper off. Let me give you an example. I'm a left-hander. In the olden days, it's not acceptable as a norm. There was a chart of the people who admit that they are left-handers. It went from like this to flat. There will be a period when suddenly there's a lot of awareness. You may see a big spike. It's not the latest trend. It should taper off from a general statistics.
ELISS Chen's story made the front page headlines in Straits Times in March 2023.
For Transgender Day of Visibility with over 20,000 views, likes, and comments.
There's a Transgender Day of Visibility. At New Year's, I was setting goals, career, family, health. I've been living with this for a very long time. Time to really look into it. People see you as a freak, you lose your job, you lose your career. I was more of the boyish boy, being the prefect, being macho. What you see on TikTok, all this, right, then is the loudest and attracts a lot of controversies. These are more like single directional broadcasting.
My mind is a little blown as you're saying it.
Forums are important. Like, oh, what do I do with my NS? Somebody will have posted a question like 3 years ago, but it's still relevant to you today. You're reading through pages and pages of them. It's a very good resource. It was better then rather than now.
What is your favorite compliment you've received as a woman?
You are tough. I get it all the time since I'm young. But in particularly, as a girl, I'm very, very, very tall. So I get the compliment a lot more often. I mean, there are tall girls around, but not as tall as I am. So
How tall are you?
183. Of course, some people say I'm pretty. That's nice. Yeah.
And how did you choose your name, ELISS?
I was watching the show Queen Elizabeth. Elizabeth, right? So I was thinking of the whole name Elizabeth. Then after that, I think some friends that was sounding out, they say that, oh, that's the 1980s name. Yeah. Then so I went to my hairdresser and then she say, just call it ELISS. Yeah. Which I love because now it's like ELISS is like bliss, so it's some form of like a bliss. I think that reflects my character a lot more.
What do you mean by it reflects your character?
I like to be happy. I want to be happy. I want to bring joy to people. Like, you know, just now I was on the bus here and there's this little baby sitting, the mother and the little baby sitting, and the baby was like trying to grab things and I give the baby my finger, you know, it's like grabbing. It's like these kind of moments. I love it. It's really blissful, right?
And how blissful would you say your life is right now?
What is a challenging question? Yeah, it has its ups, it has its downs, it has its challenges, and I think that is better than what I imagined. Yeah, it's better than what I imagined. But I think the challenges are also not what quite I imagined. Yeah.
What was your earliest memory of what you were taught a boy is and a girl, what a girl is?
I had a fortunate thing of being in a mixed primary school. I was more of the boyish boy. So, you know, like being the prefect, being macho. I mean, at that kind of age, macho-ness is really it's just fun and it's just so innocent, right? And you're like, you know, you go and protect the girls and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not really something that. And then of course, at our time, you literally go downstairs and play with catch spiders, play marbles. I did all these kind of things, or rather, he did all these kind of things, and it's fun. But there's a bit of like when you're at home. I was a crybaby in the family. I was like everything also makes me cry, and I mean my brother likes to always beating me up. So the kind of context where there's a bit of subconsciousness of like my gender identity, but it wasn't really pronounced at the point of time that, you know, that who I turned out to be. That's how I feel. I mean, these are all recollections. I mean, we don't have a lot of primary school and you create a lot of awareness. You may have some things that flashback and you think that it links to who you are. That's how I feel. Yeah. But you know, of course, as you go further, you trace back and you start to see the signs Yeah. There's essentially two different groups of us. Those who are like when they are young and very young, they are very aware that they are in the wrong gender identity, which is one of my friend, secondary school mate. So she says that, since primary school, she's everything, she always speak the girls stuff. She's very clear about where she will be. So I came to, as I was get involved in the community, I realized that there is this group that a category where they are very struggling and clear about where they need to be. And then there's the other group of us who usually are late boomers, and we are actually, it's more like we are very capable of lying to ourselves, or just the need isn't that strong at the start, and we suppress it, or we deny it, or we sort of let it out once in a while, and tell ourselves that this is, cross-dressing is just a hobby. We don't take it seriously. Yeah, so I belong into the second group, where I don't think that I have a really big problem. As in, I felt that maybe if I just keep it to a hobby, it's fine, but it's not quite okay.
At what point did it start being not okay?
I think it's a gradual process. When you are young, and I mean, it start developing in the secondary schools. When you first start off, it's more like there's a bit of like the sexual fantasy, fetishes kind of feeling, and you sort of feel that it's more of like a sexual tension, puberty thing, and you always thought that you will grow out of it. Then you go through various stages of life, and I think somewhere about maybe 6-7 years ago,
Okay.
I sort of like came to realization that it's never gonna go away. Yeah, it was one Christmas period near the New Year's where I was setting goals, and I was like looking at my life. Is there things that I can improve? That's way I was looking at various parts of my life, and we have the career, family, then health. And when it comes to the health, then I realized that, hey, I've been living with this for a very long time. Maybe it's time to really look into it and maybe see some doctor about it. That suddenly sort of like trigger a big transformation. I also came to realize that over the years I have been doing more and more and more, and
More and more what?
cross-dressing. The degree I'm cross-dressing is also increasing, as in improving, right? How I look, the number of pieces of clothing I have, and how often and what kind of exposure I get. It gets more and more more and more. So if I like plot it on a graph, it goes up and down, but in generally is sloping upwards. At the same time, especially when I hit 40s, it gets more and more scary, because there's a lot more at stake as you get older, and you have all these issues about being exposed. People see you as a freak, you lose your job, you lose your career, and because you have this hobby, and it gets very scary. Now, of course, throughout our life, we have tried to stop it. Whether I was in secondary school, when I was in JC, then I was in the army, then I was in university, and then after that I start working. You're always trying to stop it. Yeah, but it always come back. And usually whenever it comes back, it's even more intense. So that fateful month where I decided to think about it, I would rather say I decided to take action about it, which is to go and see doctors about it. I think that triggers a whole chain of events that leads me to where I am today. But I must say that the journey for every single one of us is very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although there's a lot of similarities, but it is a lot of difference. Yeah.
I really like how you broke down, there's this preconception that everyone knows they're trans when they're younger. Everyone like feels that way, but you're like, no, there's actually a group of us the late boomers.
Yes, the late boomers.
Yeah.
Usually, the late boomers will, you know, get married, have children before we make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And usually by then, the decisions are very painful, very, very, very painful. Yeah. So, I mean, some are singles all their life. I met a couple of them who are already in the 40s before they start transitioning, and they are singles and they couldn't hold a relationship because they uncertain of who they are. So all this is all individual journeys, and but we all fall under the late boomers.
I'm curious, you mentioned cross-dressing earlier on in your journey, and then that helped you try to explore what you were, and then eventually you transitioned. When was the first time you heard of the term cross-dressing?
Wow. Friendster
Ah, okay.
should be around the time when Friendster came about.
And how would you stumble upon it on Friendster? This is before my time, so to paint a
Yeah, I
picture.
mean, like Facebook is not much of your time anyway. So then imagine before Facebook, there's Friendster. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that in Friendster I discovered the word, but I think I discovered the word. Yeah, I discovered Friendster, and then then you go into Friendster, and then you find people in the community. Those were the days, right? So it was, I think, 1990s, 1988, 1998, 1999. 2000 or 2000-ish, yeah, early 2000. Those period of time where you have start to have access to internet, you start googling this. In fact, I don't even know what I was doing is actually called cross-dressing. I have no idea.
So you were doing it before you knew what to describe it, like before you knew the
Yes,
word
yes.
itself.
Yes, I invented words for whatever I'm doing. Yeah, but I cannot remember what words I invented. But there was like, it's like a play acting, you're just acting out
Right.
things. Yeah, we cannot recall where I came across these words. Yeah, but definitely other words like in those days there's no transgender this word, right? These days it was like transvestite, transsexuals, yeah. And then that's before Google. You do a search engine, Yahoo search, all the kind of things. You have very little websites that is available to really the word lands you nowhere. Yeah. So those were the very, very early days when you once in a while you will be curious and try to find out a little bit more. Yeah. I think when I'm looking at all these words and here and there, it just pop up here and there. Yeah.
All right. How did finding that community on Friendster help you with your acceptance of yourself, or even just coming to terms with what you are doing by putting a word to what you are doing?
Actually, those are scary days because, like, you have a second identity, and you're like, yeah, you're on Friendsters or on Facebook with a different login, and you have a different personality, you have a different person, and I wasn't really active in that community in the sense that the urge wasn't very strong. I just log in like once a month, that kind of things, and you just click friend, 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 friend. The algorithm will always suggest new friends for you, and they are all like, all related, and you get to see people with the same interests. Yeah, very fictitious. Not all cross-dressing world is like this, but there are certain segments of it is it's very different from the cross-dressing world and this transgender world has similarity, but really a lot of difference. Yeah, to a certain extent, the fetishness is I mean, on hindsight, I look at back, there is quite a bit of it. But it helps in a sense that it helps me learn about makeup and the dressing up, and it does get me through some of the basics. Yeah. with what we dress. I think one of the key turning point was there was a newspaper article, and then in the article they mentioned this website called SG Butterfly. SG Butterfly no longer exists, and SG Butterfly was the website for transgender and cross-dressing forum. It was a forum, and that triggered another round of self-discovery. SG Butterfly was really good. It was really good. Very sad. It's gone.
Yeah. I think it's interesting hearing that story because even today, young queer people find community and find self actualization or self recognition through online forums. I think maybe because there's just so few of us, especially if you don't live in a major city like New York City or, and even in Singapore, right? It's not as open as some other places. And so right now, I guess the Friendster forum equivalent would be like TikTok, where queer young people are just sharing about how I got my first haircut and now I'm really proud about transforming my gender in this way. But yeah, it seems like the internet has always been this common ground space for people to.
Actually, even before the Friendster, there was also Yahoo groups. And the Yahoo groups those days were very active also. Very active, and there are other group meetups. But even before that, then there's more challenging. How people get to know each other, how do people know about the community. Yeah, those days it's like pre-internet days. I really don't know how they do it. But of course the post-internet days, it just got better and better and better. Nowadays, I think the platforms are really, really diverse. You do have the Reddit, you do have the Discord groups, then you have the our. I don't think I seen any Telegram groups, and of course Facebook is still around. Then you have the TikTok and Instagram. So TikTok and Instagram, of course, there's are more like single directional broadcasting. Yeah, where you get information. But I think forums are pretty important. For example, the SG Butterfly forum, right? Somebody will have posted a question like 3 years ago, but it's still relevant to you today. And then the questions that were answered, the people who relate, you are reading posts that was 3 years ago, and then there were like 120 comments, 500 comments, and you're reading through pages and pages of them. And it's a very good resource. But when you go into a Discord group, you will have this problem where a lot of people are commenting, and the comments are all over the place, even though you put in different channel topics. But you will find that people are keep repeating the same questions and over again, and people are putting different type of viewpoints. While in the forum, you have the questions well typed out, maybe 5 to 6 sentences or even 7 to 8 sentences. And it's more like a reading experience. I can't seem to find a reading experience as powerful as SG Butterfly. But SG Butterfly, on the other hand, wasn't very active. The forum wasn't very active, but it's still a very good resource.
I think you bring up a really interesting point, and I'm like, my mind is a little blown as you're saying it, because nowadays virality is so important, and that single channel, that single person broadcasting is so important, right? That's how you create viral content. And so we've kind of sacrificed having a resource for people for just like, I'm going to create a YouTube video or I'm going to create a TikTok video. I'm trying to get as many people to see the video as possible. And what social media favors is the loudest people are the ones that are getting the attention. But that forum allows people to
get resources.
And everyone has like equal say, like, one person says this and then another person says this. It's not like we're not really comparing, like this one has like 5 million followers.
Yes. It's really like, like simple questions like, oh, what do I do with my NS?
Yeah.
Right. When do I tell the medical doctor that I'm a transgender, so on and so forth. These are all important questions to be asked, to and it's a form of resource. But what you see on TikTok, all this, right? Then like what you say is the loudest, and it attracts a lot of controversies and I've seen a lot of Western on the West side, or even there was this girl from Australia, and she's very proud of her body. She's very proud of being transgender, but she's, you know, her views or her views, her posts really attract a lot of hate comments, and there are hate comments from both people in the community as well as people outside the community, because the whole movement, I would say, the whole situation ever since forever, it was always very volatile. It's always moving. Like for example, when my time, transvestite, transsexuals was a commonly used term, right? And now it's transgender. So there's always a transition period where the community will find more what is more suitable, what is more accurate or reflective of the situation. I say that the whole situation is growing, is dynamic. Whenever it's a forum, the people that get admitted to the forum are more likely to be vetted over time. There's a lot of people who are like lurkers. Like for example, when I went to the SG Butterfly forum, I didn't post anything. Of course, you have to post an introduction, and you just read a lot of the 5 years ago post, 3 years ago, 1 year post, and sometimes you read the same post over and over again. And it is a resource, and it's specific to the community. You don't get exposed to all the hate comments and all the confusing comments. And I mean, that's the overall internet discourse, the whole issue with the internet, where everything seems to be like black and white, but in real life everything is gray, right? Like if someone
Yeah.
says that orange juice is good for health, and then you have another person will comment that no, you shouldn't eat orange. All these kind of comments. It's like taking a snap picture when the whole thing is a video.
Right.
Yeah. So there's always these issues with the internet when you go online, social media for comments. The younger ones are also facing a lot of challenge. It was better then rather than now, although there's more platforms.
So while the issue is much more publicized and there's more people who understand what being trans means and being queer and all of those things, now it seems like everything is a battlefield and you're either left or right, up and down,
Yeah,
black and
yes.
white.
Yes.
In reality,
Now I think the West side, because of the US political environment, and at the same time I think the whole movement has some form of maturity. I do still remember that there was one incident when I got into the car, and at the point in time I did transition. The people in the car, like business associates, they know that I'm transgender, but one of them just I don't know why the conversation goes into the pronouns issues, and then they was just making comments that pronouns are so confusing. Why is there a all these pronouns, and they are all worked up, upset about the pronoun thing. Then I was just sitting in the car.
and this was before.
No, this after transition. So that was like maybe 2-3 years ago. The general society have to understand that what we are really comes something deep inside. It's not something that is the latest trend.
Yeah.
It's not like the latest trend to be a lesbian. It's not the latest trend to be a transgender. You may feel that the pronouns are very trendy, but it goes back down to us. I would say it's not a trend. I'm a left-hander. Let me give you an example. I'm a left-hander. And I ever read before that when left-handers was in the olden days, right, whether is it on the Eastern culture or the Western culture, it's not acceptable as a norm, right? My sisters had rulers on her knuckles all the time whenever she picked up the pen using her left hand. And I think the Western world were the same. There was a chart of the people who admit that they are left-handers. It went from like this to flat. So there'll be a period when suddenly there's a lot of awareness in the society about that lesbian and gays, transgender has then there will be a period of time when you will see a lot of people coming out as gays, lesbians, or transgender, but then they will taper off. That means the number or the percentage of the population who is lesbian, gays, transgender, and binaries, it will come out and you may see a big spike. You will suddenly realize that the people around you are LGBT, but it should taper off, just like awareness of being a left-hander. It should taper off and form a general statistics.
I really like that analogy, actually, because I think now that we have more awareness of queer people in general, I'm sure there is that, there is that spike. And like you said, people are reacting in that this is abnormal, this is strange, I don't get it. Are they just following a trend? Yeah, it's a fad.
Oh my God.
And that is a really interesting way of phrasing this whole fear mongering. I don't think I've ever met someone who kind of phrased it that way. That's like the best way to explain it to, honestly, explain it to my mom, explain it to more like people who are conservative, but conservative not necessarily because they harbor resentment or hate towards queer people, but it's just like fear. It's like, what's going on? I don't understand these pronouns and I'm like struggling.
I'm also struggling with the pronouns, right?
And it's like, hey, we're all learning. Statistically speaking, queer people are still a minority. It's just that this minority now has more of a voice and more recognition. So there's more people within this minority that feels comfortable taking on that identity. Just like you being left-handed, you phrasing it that way. You telling me you're left-handed. I'm like, yeah, okay. It's like saying your hair is green or your hair is brown, right?
Yeah, correct. Your eyes are blue, right?
Yeah.
I'm left-handed there. I'm very as a left-hander, I'm still very ostracized, disabled by the right hand word.
Right. Okay. We do need to include that as well.
Right. So it's like,
what would you say to someone who is questioning their gender identity? What resources would you lead them towards today?
Okay, so for my own journey, because I can only give anecdotal evidence, and also, of course, there are a lot of resources there, like, some of the websites like transgender.sg or transgendersg.org. Yeah, they have resources there. But for me, when I decided to take the journey, I started off, remember, I was talking about the goal settings, and I decided to go and see a doctor about it. And for me, at that point of time, because at my age, career is very important, privacy is very important. And I've been like Googling, doing a lot of forums, and all this is leading me to create a foundation, but it's not enough for me to manage the process. So for me, I think the medical resources, which is very important. So what I did was I went to see the polyclinic doctors who refer me to the IMH. Then I see the IMH general psychiatrist. Then after that, I see the specialist psychiatrist. Those were the days. So when IMH have a specialist psychiatrist, and then I'll see the psychotherapist, and the whole process, the whole setup, the whole system is I would say that they should consider going this path. Last few days there's a parliament debate about mental health, and I'm really happy about this mental health discussion, and really that all these issues require a lot of mental health support. And of course, in the olden days, being lesbian, gay, or being queer is considered as sickness, especially transgender is classified as an illness. But this is the part where a lot of people don't understand that, why is this debate? Let's go back down to the basis first. What is this debate that whether transgender is an illness or not? The analogy is that, being overweight is not an illness. But overweight leads to diabetes, hypertension, which is an illness. So being transgender is not an illness. It's just like being overweight. So, of course, when you are overweight, what do? You change your lifestyle. Do you need to take medication? Some of them need to take medication, right? Because you need to prevent your hypertension, which, so you do take some medication, you do take some supplements, but you also need to adjust your lifestyle. So likewise, in transgender, we adjust our lifestyle, we dress differently, we grow our hairs, and at the same time, we take some medication. So, and we get mental health support. So I think the medical field works this way. Generally the doctors are over since 1970s, where the study on transgender support. Over the years, they have developed the treatment methods, the approach that doctors do use is to provide the medical support for the other issues. Like, for example, if you get depressed about your situation, they will help you treat the depression. Right? If you need medication for your transition, they will provide the medication, monitor your blood levels, monitor your estrogen levels, monitor your liver function, because you take so many medications. So the medical field is they also, of course, they provide the gender surgeries and so on and so forth. So they have all this support. Doesn't mean that it's a way of like not treating the problem. I mean, it's a very broad analogy. It's not like a perfect fit, but that's how I came to accept and answer the question. It's not a perfect analogy, but it helps me understand.
How was the transition process in Singapore? You kind of distilled it into those actionable steps.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the mental aspect of going through that many doctors. Were you treated with kindness? What was the attitude of these people who were treating you at every step?
In general, it was very good, but at point it's very frustrating for me because I've been waiting for so long. So since teenager till I'm 40s, that was like almost like 25, 26 years. So in terms of my patience of waiting for my appointments is very high. As in, from the polyclinic referred to the IMH, it was like 4 months, 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, like, what's the big deal, right? Because I don't have a pressing problem. I mean, I always have this problem. So waiting for another 3 more months when you have already 25, 27 years of living with the problem. So you don't, for me, it's not acute. But I know some of the young ones, they feel very struggling every single day, depressed. So their problems are very acute. Yeah. So after I see the general psychiatrist, I MH, after 3-4 months wait, then there's another 2 months wait to see the specialist psychiatrist. And then after that, every appointment is like 2-3 weeks later. The whole process is really quite long. Then you also get to have to see the psychotherapist. But then at times the pace pick up so fast that I couldn't cope.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, next thing you are seeing the voice therapist, you're seeing the endocrinologist, and then you're like, I'm not ready to take my medication yet. Oh no, I'm not ready to am I really sure that this is the path I'm looking at? At the point of time, you still have a lot of questions. I think my basis of going to see a doctor was to figure out who I am. But from my loved one, she felt that I was really going to take the step forward. I mean, of course, on hindsight, she's right.
I see. So you went into the process just one step at a time, just, looking at your goals, deciding, I want to look into this issue, this feeling that I have.
Yes.
And let me just set up that first appointment.
Exactly.
And that kind of just, I like that.
It's sort of like, I felt that it's like you have a cough, you go and see a doctor, right? I just go and see a doctor.
Yeah. No, I think that's...
You didn't have the intention to remove your lung.
I think that's very approachable because it's such a big thing. And despite the fact that you said you've had these feelings for over 2 decades, it's still scary, right? And I'm sure a young person listening to this would be like, do I need to know, like, for sure before I book that first appointment with a doctor? And you're saying no, just...
No, because you see, they offer mental support throughout their whole journey, right? There are times when you are perfectly okay, which is really, really, where you can live in your born identity, right? There are really a lot of times I not only live my life as in my born identity, right? He lived that life. He was actually doing quite well.
How was it like performing that nuclear family ideal heteronormative obligation?
We had a very loving marriage, and no, I didn't feel obligated. I enjoy it. I have great memories about it. In fact, I see my therapist. Those days when I was seeing her therapist was grieving about the loss of that relationship. But it also becomes very challenging because I was performing the role quite well. I enjoy performing the role.
Of a husband.
Yeah. So it was tough to like, let go, the idea that, I no longer can take care of her. It was very, very painful. So that was really a loss. I mean, I speak for myself, but I have went on forums, Facebook forums as well, and I do see very or Reddit. Recently was on Reddit. It was very sad post that whenever we see all this, the married person came to a point where they realize that they are really transgender, and they also really considering transitioning, and since you went through that, you can feel the, in that 6 to 7 sentences, the questions they ask or the post the paragraph they wrote, you know that what's in store for them, right? For the next 6 months to 2 years, you will see there are a lot of pain, a lot of struggles. I remember I read a post where she was saying that the birthday gift that she picked for her, for the wife, was ex-wife, was she took the gift and smashed it and call him names. Those days him names, and there he was transitioning to her in a rented room, losing the kids, never get to see the kids, and thinking about, that, he loved her with all genuine, with all the passion, but because of this issue, he is going to leave everything. He's going to lose everything. I mean, when you read all these posts, you feel that the struggles that people experience in the West, a lot of people have the misconception that the West will be a better world than the East. I really don't think so. I really don't think so. I read so many forums and read so many posts. It doesn't get any easier just because in the West, people are more accepting. I
And you're
think
using
that,
air quotes here.
yeah, because, it's a misconception.
Right.
Yeah, it's a misconception that the West side would have an easier path. I think there will be more, but the percentage is not significant.
If you could do it all over again, would you have transitioned earlier?
Wow, that's a question that my mother asked me. I think just a few months ago. She was like, I was just having a conversation with her, and she starts talking about it, and then she was saying that I just sort of like put out that, I actually know that I have this problem for quite some time. And then she was like, she's really puzzled, and she was wondering why did I get married? Why did I start transitioning earlier? But then if you look back in the past, if I had to do that, she would have felt that I would have a lot of challenges with my career. I will not be able to live a fulfilled life. I think maybe when we transition at the later part of our life, our career is more stable.
Right.
We are more we have a lot more confidence about our professional capability. But when we transition young, getting a job may be very difficult. Yeah.
Have you faced any difficulty? I mean, my understanding is you're still at the same place, pre-transition and now post-transition.
Yeah, there's a good news is that there's a stability there, but it's still a process. There's still a daily issues. There are still challenges. Yeah, but the challenges are manageable. Yeah, manageable. There are challenges that I wish is not there, but I think in the workplace is quite invincible. That means, like, you don't know what people are talking behind your back. You don't know why you are not getting the promotion. It's always a magnitude of factors, right? Yeah, it's a magnitude of factors, whether it's your character, it's your chemistry with your bosses, and so on and so forth. If you say that it's not an issue, then that's not right, because it's a list of factors, and the list of factors, each point varies at different situations, vary at different criteria. But when we talk about work, is especially when you are like in the 40s or even the late 40s, you always have every single factor becomes very important if you want to move on to the next step. You want to, or you are very afraid that you've been retrenched. Retrenchment is really big thing in Singapore now. You're very afraid that any one factor will affect your career. Another very interesting observation between guys and girls. For guys, once you hit 40s, it's like the time of your career, right? When you are 20, you are like learning things. You are 30, you get some form of promotions. You get some form of specialization, and then when you are hit 40s, you suddenly boom 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 boom. You get multi promotions. You get, you start to do well, and if you are lucky, by then you are C-suite. In that kind of context itself, the 40s is the prime time for guys. Then when I hang out with my primary school friends, the girls, and they are, primary school are definitely our same age. And they're all like talking about retirement. They are talking about stopping work at 55. Their kids already at a certain age, like, in polytechnic, in uni, because girls usually marry younger and they have kids younger. So the mindset, the life stages is very different. They're very different. I don't really see girls talking about 40s is the time of the career, right? I don't think so. I don't see that often.
When looking at your friendship circles now, do you hang out with a lot of men or a lot of women? Where do you draw your most support from?
I think I draw more support from the girls. The guys are still at this kind of like late 40s stage, because the guys all had kids late, marriage late, have kids late. At the age of 48, 49, most of them are like their kids are still secondary school. Usually the first kid is in secondary school, the second kid is still like P5, P6, and they're doing a lot of Grab chauffeuring kids to, weekends are chauffeuring around the kids. They spend a lot of time being family men. I hang out with guys who are those dorky nerds and a very family person. So that is my social circle, and they really don't have time for singles like me, right? And so they are really like, career is the biggest thing now, right? Because they are in the 40s, as well as they still have the young family to take care of. So their time is really, they don't have social life. They are very limited social life, right? So these are my challenges now. I think that caters to being single as well, because when you transition late, right? I never have the experience of growing up as a girl, right?
Right.
And the girls bonding and the guys bonding is very different. Within the office, the girls will talk a lot more like, nitty gritty things about life. Of course, we'll gossip more. We were like, why the guy is like that, why the manager is like that, why the customer is like that. And we always like, chit chatting, oh, the food is nice, oh, the hair is nice, oh, that dress is great. I find that kind of life it suits what I want to be, right? But the guy's world is like, it's very activity based. It's very like, you participate in that sports, or the conversation is really, I'll call it dry, because it always circulates around work, politics, and sports. So I think like it's very difficult for guys to talk to each other. Yeah, especially at the age of 40s. I find that when I was here, I find it was really tough. So everyone was shocked, because when I came out, everyone has no idea no inkling of me being transgender. They were like, wow, this tall, handsome guy. Yeah.
Did
Who,
you
who may be a bit metrosexual, right? But that's about it.
did you feel excluded from female friendship circles when you were a he? I mean, is that
Yes,
the
definitely,
okay
definitely, definitely.
way to rephrase it?
Definitely. The funny thing was, when you're a guy, right, a part of you somehow like you very switch off from this.
Because it's interesting because you're saying when you transition and
You enjoy
had
being in the friendship
yeah,
circle.
you gain access.
Yeah, but when you are a guy, you look at the friendship circle of the girls, you're like, why they are so like fussing over all the small thing and all this, and it's really a mind-boggling change. A part of you, they're like, oh, I want to be part of that friendship circle, right? Because you are so like man, right? Then you find that why do girls always take forever to decide what to eat? Right? Always 随便. Then after that, throw a tantrum about what the guy bought and ordered. You get very frustrated with all this behavior. Circle is more fun to be in the girls' friendship circle. And I think a lot of guys know it because they usually have friends who are girls who they can talk a lot more
Right. Yeah, I see this a
rather
lot.
than they talk to another guy, right? I mean, guys talk to each other about their problems, their issues, they usually cannot share about what they feel. They only share about the problem. Then the other guys will give solutions, fixing the problem, and that's what you're looking for, rather than what you feel. It's a very different world. I would say that pre-transition, I there's a bit of craving for it, in a sense that when you see that the girls very close, they're holding hands, right? Secondary school girls, they were like, then you like, why didn't I have that kind of childhood? Yeah, in that
Oh, wow.
context itself, like you wish you are born a girl, you wish that you transition earlier, but no matter what, the earliest you can transition was like early 20s, and but you feel that you miss out a lot on that context.
I
Yeah,
guess I've never thought of it that way. How you can miss a childhood you never had.
that's strange, right? Yeah, but it brings back to the same question just now you asked, right? If you only have like transition earlier, there are days when I really wish that I can reverse it, but most of the time you just try to live your life as best as you can now. You only live once, right? I would say the whole process of transitioning is like you reincarnated, but you remember your previous life. And not only that you remember your previous life, everyone remember your previous life. It's very deep, and
You're really pulling in some like Buddhist
yeah. There's a bit
reincarnation.
of there's a bit of
Yeah.
Buddhist concept, right? I do not adopt a very confrontational attitude when it comes to explaining my or telling people that transgender, like insisting people on the pronoun thing, so on and so forth. But I do give reminders to everyone. And the 4 years, right now is almost 4 years. I have friends who regularly see me still address me as he. I mean, I just gently remind them. But the thing is I believe that it's their memory, right? I can change what I am. Of course, I can. I hope that they address me as who I am. But when it comes to like addressing me when in a conversation, when they just pointing to me and then they use he, it does still come out quite often. It does. I think in 1 week I can easily get 10 he's, yeah.
Still,
And I don't think look like
no, definitely not.
it's like always like, why you call me he?
A lot of people saw your Straits Times article about your transition. And I think what I found really interesting about the article was how patient, how gentle natured you were about sharing your story, and also how it was written in a way to really ease in the general Singapore population into this concept of you being a very proud, open transgender woman. What prompted you to say yes to the interview?
That was quite a bit of a story. I mean, I met the journalist in a Zoom talk, and I don't think she was thinking of writing that article in this angle at that point of time. And I was talking to her about, which is our opening topics about medical support for transgender. So that was the Zoom topic about, and I got to know her during the Zoom session. And I was more interested to share about and asking her, telling her, giving her a bit of insights on what is really frustrating me in terms of the medical support. It's good, but there are parts of it that is really frustrating. And so that was the conversation. But then like many months later, when she asked me out to have a coffee and talk to me, and she she just asking me about my life story. Of course, I just share, and she was taking down notes. And only then later, a couple of months later, then she suddenly texts me and said that she's writing an article, and she asked me that is it okay to talk about my life story, because it was a transgender day of visibility, and then I was like, there's a transgender day of visibility. Then I was, oh, okay, I'm sure you should be fine. It should be fine. Yeah. I mean, I didn't expect that the article to be so huge, right? It's like the it's like more than 3/4 page. And just a side thing, it was like talk about the article. It was like that time there was a first Congress hearing with Sao Chu, TikTok CEO.
Oh, yes.
That was like he was such a big thing, right? I don't know whether you all know that the newspaper article, my photo was on top of his.
And it
There
was
was a small,
bigger.
yeah, he had a small column here, a small column, and then mine was like so big. Then I was like, oh my god, I'm so honored. And of course, recently he's now in the news again.
So time for you to be in the news again.
No. I think you talk about the being chant and kindness. It was derived from a book that I read as I was transitioning. And the book did explain, because it was written by one of the ex-wife, and she was explaining that why there was of challenges, and she put forward that because it was the memories, everyone had memories, right? You are trying to live your life, that's okay, but everyone owns their own memory.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a battle against the memory. It was a challenge to the memories. Like, like my brother remembers me as the brother that played marbles. That's his memory, right? So who am I to ask him to erase that? It's not possible. Maybe the Asian value of me feels that just be gentle, just be nice. Of course, the book did suggest they give everyone the time, the space, because for me, it took 25, 30 years for this journey, right? So I gradually grow into the idea that I'm transgender. But for them, it was like out of the blue, bam, boom. And then it disrupt their memories, and then who am I to like suddenly just press on them and say that, oh, this is who I am. Yes, I must impress them that please address me correctly, do your best, and I personally also must do my best to make the whole transition more comfortable for everyone around me. Yeah, but I will say that not everyone has that kind of same confidence. I should be definitely more confident than those that are younger. Those are like, they just uh, in the uni or so and so forth. It's really quite challenging for them to come out as transgender.
And I think it's valuable for you to share your story so openly. Lots of comments about how great your skin looks at the time of the article, which I think was quoted like 47.
Yeah, correct.
And
So now I'm going 49.
every other comment was like, what is her skincare routine?
I always like wash my face diligently, as well as moisturize my face and make sure that there's no breakout. But there's also advantages in a sense that guys in their 30s, they have great skin. It's just the restaurant thing, right? So you have a very good skin base. So then but it deteriorates very fast from 40s. So I have the advantages of like in the 30s, I start to take care of my skin. And then when I hit 40s, late 40s, right, mid 40s, I already have a certain base of skincare, and I never put makeup. because girls put makeup, right? So
That's probably it.
yeah, then by the early 40s, I was really doing my facials on regular basis. Yeah. Then after that, on top of it, I switched to estrogen. So when I switched to estrogen, I'm back to puberty. So the skin get another layer of like growth. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so you have like you do have, but last few years the wrinkles have appeared. The skin starts to sag. Yeah.
Well, you heard it here first. The pros of taking estrogen in your 40s.
There's a lot of pros. The minimum you do is toner moisturizer, right? Then once a week a mask, then every 2 months a facial.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit a like and subscribe down below. 3 seconds from you makes a massive impact on getting more people to hear the inspiring stories and advice from our guests.